Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm actually going to be talking about some of the magical moments that I was able to create during the program. Now before I go on and say anything, I want to get a little backstory about why I'm creating this video. I actually did post it on my Instagram that I was kind of looking to see what video I should do next, whether it was magical moments or celebrities I've met during my program, and it actually was split down evenly 50-50. So I actually decided let's do some magical moments because of how dark the world is right now. I think maybe spreading some little magic might be able to lighten people's day up. So I want to give also a disclaimer before I start. Everything that I will be saying is my own thoughts and opinions. None of this does reflect, it's been a while, does not reflect the company nor brand. This is all just my thoughts and opinions, and I want to give that disclaimer because I like working for Disney. Let's get started with the first magical moment. So I was actually working on the Food and Wine Festival side in Appleseed, which was in the 365 room in Canada. I was scheduled as a floater, which basically meant that they kind of placed you where they needed you. So I actually got scheduled there, and it was my first time. So they were teaching me how to do the filler side. The filler side is basically where you're kind of helping out with the drinks. At this point, I was helping out with the flights that they have. So it's better to always listen into what the guests are trying to say, so that way you can kind of get ahead. So at this point, that's what I was doing. There was actually two guests. There was a couple. It was a man and a woman, and then also an older lady in an ECV vehicle, which a lot of people don't know what that is, and that is an electrical scooter. So I'm listening in, and as I'm listening, I see this lady getting ready to move, and she runs over the girl's foot for the couple, and I was in shock. I was like, did that just really happen? Because I ran straight to my cord without even thinking. I was like, hey, so I just witnessed this, and she seems like she's in a lot of pain, considering that her face literally just turned bright red and her eyes are literally watering so bad. I'm gonna ask if she needs medical attention, but it's okay if I can give something for free to her just to like kind of distract her from the pain. I got the okay from my cord, and I went over afterwards and I was like, hey, are you okay? And asking the lady if she was fine. She goes, yeah, I'm fine, still red and kind of dreary. And I was like, are you sure? Do you need medical attention? Like, we can take you over. Are you sure you're fine? We can get you a wheelchair if you would like. And she kept saying that she's fine, she's fine, she's fine, and kind of repeating over and over again. So at this point, I actually go over to my coworker and I was like, hey, can you get her a frozen apple pie, which was very popular there. And they said, yeah, sure, we can make that for her really quickly. So as we were giving her, I think it was her like cider flight that she had, I also went over and I gave her a frozen apple pie, and she's like, oh, we didn't order it. And I said, no, it's on the house, like, don't worry about it. I was like, Mickey just wants to make sure that you're fine. So she actually smiles at this and takes the frozen apple pie and leaves to kind of go eat it and also try the sliders. A couple minutes later, the couple actually comes back. First, it was the husband, and he comes back and says, thank you for that. That was really sweet. My wife actually wants to come over. She's just taking her time, but she wants to come over and thank you. And I said, oh, that's fine, don't worry. And at this point, the wife actually starts walking up behind him and goes, hey, in tears, she goes, thank you so much for this frozen apple pie. And I was like, I'm literally said, are you fine? Because at this point, I'm kind of worried that she's still in pain, because mind you, she's crying and still really red, not as red as she was before. And she goes, yeah, she goes, I just didn't want to make a scene because we had planned this trip for 4 years now. And at this point, she starts going into details on why she didn't want to make a scene. She said if she made a scene, that would be the only thing that she would remember on her trip. And that's not something that she wants to do, especially since she spent 4 years saving up for this trip. And the fact that I was able to give her a frozen apple pie was such a small little gesture, but it told her that basically canceled out the bad of it, and she can still have the good memory of the vacation. And at this point, she said also too that she was on a tight budget, so it was something on her list, but she just knew that if she wanted to do the cider, she knew she couldn't get the apple pie, so the fact that she did get it was a nice little treat as well. So she actually offered to give me a cast compliment, and she did take my picture, and she said thank you so much and that I made her vacation. And that was my first magical moment. It was something so small, but it just made me feel so good for the rest of the day. And like I said, that was just the first one that kind of popped into my head because it was the first time that I actually got to make magic. And like I said, it's something small, but something so small sometimes can make someone's vacation, and that's absolutely amazing. So let's go on to my second story. Now, this one actually has happened when I was working in Guest Flow in Galaxy's Edge, which is also known as Star Wars Land. I haven't really gone into details about what I did in Guest Flow just because I have been absolutely so busy with a lot of stuff, but now since I'm kind of home waiting when I can make magic again, I figured I could start making some videos kind of explaining what I did, and also kind of editing a lot of stuff that I do have already filmed that I just never got a time to. So like I said, this was one of the times that I was working in Guest Flow. This was actually my first day on planet, which is what we call when we were working in Batu. So I was actually terrified because you do go through training to make sure that you get the lingo down, because there is special ways that you do have to talk. I also was very scared because I really didn't know what I was doing, and I was really scared because there wasn't really many people around you in Guest Flow. Like, there was enough people that they could help you, but you're kind of on your own for most of the portion of it. And I remember that I got scheduled to be in front of Falcon. This is when we still had land positions, and this was before Rise of the Resistance, so that's why we were still allowed to be in front of Falcon and helping them out there. But the line wasn't too bad. At this point, the line was probably like when you could still get in for like 25 minutes instead of like the 135 before we left. So I was in front of there, kind of nervous, looking around, making sure maybe I could help out, try to figure out who I can interact with, because I know that's something that we are encouraged to do. And I was looking around and I saw this little girl that was looking very frantically everywhere, and I was kind of worried. I was like, is she lost? Is everything okay? And so I went up to her and I was like, Bright Suns, travelers, are you okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, okay. And next thing I know, her dad comes up, and I'm like, okay, so she's not lost. That's good. He goes, yeah, she's just a little scared. She saw some stormtroopers. And she goes, don't say that word. They're so scary. They're going to hear you're going to pop out of nowhere. And at this point, I was like, perfect. This is a great time to practice my lingo and interact. And I was just like, oh, don't be afraid of those bucket heads. And as soon as I said that, she actually starts laughing and starts repeating, bucket heads. At this point, we were allowed to call them bucket heads. It's been some debate of whether or not we were allowed to or we weren't, but at this point in time, we were. So she starts going back over and over and keeps saying that. And then I was like, oh, you find that funny? She goes, yeah, I've never heard them called bucket heads. And I was like, oh, those bucket heads are just so trying to walk around looking all scary like, but they're not. Don't even worry about it. And as I'm joking around with her and playing around, I'm like, yeah. And I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry, I'm looking over to the side because I have my notes written down too, because like there's just a lot in the story. But at this point, I started asking her, like, do you know the story of Vi? And she goes, no. And even her dad's like, who's that? And I start explaining Vi's story, which I'll give you the brief summary. She's actually works for the Resistance. She actually came to Batu on a special mission to make sure that the planet was safe for the Resistance to come in. So she was the first one here. She's actually roaming around everywhere in the parks. So if you see her, she's so fun to interact with. But I was kind of giving her the story of it and explaining how brave she was and how she's not afraid of the stormtroopers. And almost by magic, Vi appears behind us and says, are you giving her my top information secrets? And this little girl, I love her so much. She goes, no, she's telling me how to be brave like you. And I've never seen a character, like actor, literally almost break character. Like, she had a smile on her face and she kind of like starts talking to the little girl a bit about more of her story and like how she shouldn't be afraid of stormtroopers. And then she kind of looks over at me, and then I start joining in as well. So we start interacting with her, and I want to say the interaction took place about 5 to 6 minutes. It was so fun. And also this, like I said, it was my first time there, so this actually put my nerves at ease. I think it also put the little girl's nerves at ease. And then afterwards, Vi just started leaving and started walking afterwards. And so the little girl was super happy, the dad was super happy, and they told me that they're going to be on their way to the Millennium Falcon. But thank you so much for the interactions, and thank you so much for helping her trying to not be afraid of the stormtroopers. So later on the night, I actually see them again. And as soon as I made eye contact with the little girl, she actually starts bolting, running towards me with open arms, and she literally yells, I saw them and I wasn't afraid because of you. And and she hugged me and she thanked me so much. And she said the story of Vi actually helped her out a lot to not be afraid of the stormtroopers. The dad actually came over afterwards and said thank you so much for that. He goes, I can actually enjoy the land without her being really afraid. And he actually asked if I could take a picture with his little girl, and I said yes. And she kept hugging me and saying thank you so much for making me brave, just like Vi, thank you so much. And she left, and that was the best interaction that I think I've ever had with a little kid. And it just made my day and made me feel like, okay, I can handle the rest of the days here at Guest Flow on Galaxy's Edge. Like, it's gonna be fine. If I have days like this is gonna be great. But it was so nice knowing that a story from Star Wars could actually help this little girl feel like she's brave and literally feel like, oh, I don't need to be worried about that because she's not worried. They're not worried. It's fine. So it was just so cute and so adorable, and it's one of my favorite stories I love to tell because she's just so cute. And she also did come afterwards later saying, you're from Star Wars, right? And I'm like, I don't know how to respond to that. Yes, I think so. I mean, I'm technically I'm canon in the Star Wars universe, so yes. But totally made my day. Before I go into the story, I do want to say that this was in the spare of the moment, that this magical moments do not happen at all. I believe it only happened about once or twice, just because of how popular the ride is and how popular the demand is, that we actually can't really do this at all. So this was just a once or twice kind of okay in the moment to go and do this. Just giving a disclaimer out there because I don't want to give anybody's false hope being like, well, if this happened to one person, this can happen to me. So some of you may have put together that this next story is for Rise of the Resistance. This is actually when Rise of the Resistance was open for about 3 weeks. And this was actually the first day that we got through all boarding groups, which was absolutely freaking amazing. And this is actually before we had backup boarding groups. So we were just absolutely ecstatic. I think the leaders, the chords, CPs, cast members were just like, whoa. Like, I know I had a smile on my face when they told me that we actually got through all the boarding groups, because that was just absolutely amazing, because it is really heartbreaking to tell people, unfortunately, you're not riding the ride today, or unfortunately, we are cutting off boarding groups. Like, it's just absolutely heartbreaking, but unfortunately, we do have to do that, and I was just absolutely so ecstatic. And then the next thing I know, my leader's grabbing me and says, hey, I need to talk to you privately. Now, I'm not gonna lie, if I didn't say, I was freaking out a little bit. I was like, am I getting termed? That is the first thought in every cast member when they literally told that they have to be talked privately, even if they didn't do anything. So he saw how nervous I was, and he was like, relax, you're not getting termed unless you did something. And I was like, no, I haven't done anything. He's like, all right, perfect, cool. So, as you know, we actually got through all the boarding groups, and we have a little bit of time left before the ride closes down. Can you actually go out and find family members that didn't get the boarding group that wants to ride Rise of the Resistance? Just be very, very discreet about this, okay? Just because we're pretty sure it's gonna be a one-time deal. And I was so excited that I got chosen. I was like, yes, I can go do that. He goes, perfect. So he gave me an iPad to kind of write down the experience, and it was awesome. I literally got to like go out, and then he said, before I went out into the on the planet, I don't know why I'm losing train of thought here, but he literally was like, go make magic. And I was super excited. I ran with that iPad. I remember the first family that I found, which is actually what's in front of Droid Depot, and it was a family of 5. They were all dressed up too as characters, and it was just absolutely so cute. They even had a stroller for one of the kids that was there, literally dressed up as the Millennium Falcon, which I thought was just the cutest thing ever. So I went up to them and I literally said, Rising Moons travelers, how was your trip today here in Batuu? And they kind of started interacting with me, started saying how amazing it was and how they're gonna come back tomorrow, even though it was their last day of traveling, but they just wanted to come back one more time just because they loved it so much. And I asked them, were they able to do the missions for the Resistance? And they said, no, unfortunately, we didn't get a boarding group. And that's when I had this big smile on my face, and I was like, would you like to start your mission with the Resistance? And that's when every single one of them literally started shaking. And I think the dad started crying so quick and said, are you serious? And I'm like, yes, I'm being very serious right now. I can get you started on your mission, recruits. And that's when he actually dropped down to his knees and started bawling. And I was like, I'm supposed to be discreet here. Like, I'm happy that you're happy, sir, but like, discreet was told to me and this is not discreet. But he was so happy, and as we were walking, the mom started shaking and she kept repeating, I can't believe this is happening. And they kept telling me over and over again how I'm making their trip so memorable and amazing. And they actually started telling me why they weren't able to get a boarding group. Their son, unfortunately, had a really bad allergy the night before, and they had to make sure that he was fine. And by the time that he kind of cooled down, just because it wasn't too bad of an allergic reaction, they were able to go to the park, because that was his one thing that he wanted to do, was to go into Galaxy's Edge. So I thought that was really awesome and amazing. But it's really, really interesting to see a grown man drop to his knees crying. And as I was getting them ready to go on their mission, he literally said, thank you so much for this. You have no idea how much this means to me and my family. Like, this is just absolutely going to be most memorable. Thank you so much. He actually took a picture of a name tag and said thank you. And I let him on his way to his mission. And that's when I went to go find the second family that I found, which I think was absolutely amazing. As I was walking, there was actually a family of 4. It was a mom, a dad, and 2 kids. At this point, there was a kid that was probably about the age of 15, 16, and another kid that was at the age of probably 10 to 12. I saw them, they were all wearing these cute Star Wars matching shirts, and I said the same thing, kind of asking about their travels. They were telling me how amazing it was, and I asked them if they were able to get a boarding group, and they told me that they were not. But they literally came here on a vacation that ended up being not really a vacation. So they came to Florida. They were telling me about it, how they came to Florida for basically visiting one of the relatives that they have here. But by the time that they got here, the relative was actually really sick, so they actually couldn't really do much, because they were just taking care of the relative that was a little bit elderly, making sure that they were fine. And they were just telling me how they actually did have to cancel a couple of the days here at Disney, but the relative told them, no, go at least one day and enjoy your time. So that was the day that they had, and this was the only time that they had to really enjoy the park. And as they're telling me the story, I literally asked, were you able to get a boarding group? And they told me no, just because they wanted to make sure that the relative was fine and okay before they left. At that point, when they did arrive in the park, the boarding groups were gone, and I asked them, would they like to join the mission and join the cause? And that is when the mother let out a scream that even my coordinator, who was couple feet away, turned around and looked at me like, do we need to call security? Like, what's going on? Do medical issue? Like, what? It scared everybody around, and she started jumping up and down with joy, because they're a huge Star Wars fan, to the point where she actually remembers going to the movie with her brothers for every single opening, and she has not missed an opening of the movies at all, which I thought was absolutely amazing. Her son started, I want to say the eldest son, was actually starting to freak out, shake so much uncontrollably, to the point that we actually, before I could take them on the ride, we had to sit him down, get him some water. We wanted to make sure that he was okay. We were very close to calling medical, because of how bad he was shaking of excitement and joy, which is absolutely amazing. It's horrible to see it happening, but it's amazing to think that this ride can cause people so much joy. So that was very interesting, and that was the last family in the night that I was able to let them ride the ride. But yeah, that was definitely a night to remember, especially just because the whole time that they were walking, it was just pure tears of joy. And it's amazing to see these grown-ups just literally revert back to being kids and seeing that joy come through their eyes. Like, it is amazing. Like, I loved it so much doing it that night. Like I said, it's very rare for it to happen, just because we do have backup boarding groups now. At the time we didn't. So that is a memory that the families are going to have for a while, and it's a memory that I'm going to have for the rest of my life, really, of how amazing that really was. Last story, and I was debating on putting this in because I didn't know, because it's very personal to me, and I decided, you know what, if we're going to do magical moments and make people happy, let's do it. So this moment actually does take place once again in Rise of the Resistance. It was actually towards the end of the night. Boarding groups were being called. A couple of them were actually let go, unfortunately, because we did have some downtime, and this was actually during one of the downtimes that we had. there was a family in front of me, and they were actually wearing all matching shirts, and I kind of remembered the shirts because I've seen them before through the park throughout the whole day, that day and the day before, and I didn't really kind of remembered what it was. I knew it was something, but I didn't know what. And I was kind of talking to this little girl that was right in front of me who had the shirt as well, and I was kind of telling, because at this point, you know, people get a little anxious, upset, so I was kind of talking to her to kind of keep her calm, especially because there was a lot of people behind her and she just wanted to wait because they're waiting if it does open back up and then they'll get scanned. And as I was talking to her, kind of telling her a little bit about the world of Batu, because there is a lot of backstory there, I remembered I was talking to her about why we actually say Till the Spires and what it means, and she was so fascinated. She actually started asking me a lot of questions, and so we sort of interacted for a good while. I'm gonna say 10 to 15 minutes, and next thing I know, she's kind of looking around everywhere, and she asked me, hey, how often do people ride this ride? And I go, well, it's really hard to ride, sweetie, and I kind of explained to her why it's in such popular demands. I know she had a multi-experience, which was basically what you get when you are evac, so she was in the queue itself and it had to be done, so she got back. This is the time that we're still doing that, and she kind of looked around, and I went to go help another guest, and all I hear from the side is her talking to her mom going, I didn't realize a lot of people come here really early in the morning, Mommy, and they don't get to ride it. She goes, that's not fair. And she literally asked her mom, can I give my experience to somebody that really wants to ride this? Because it's just not fair. And her mom goes, yes, you can definitely do that. You know what? I'm gonna give you mine and we can sit down, we'll let your sister go through, and we can just wait. And I'm hearing this and I'm just like, that is, what? This little girl who's probably 9, probably 10, wants to do that. I've never seen somebody give up the chance to ride Rise of the Resistance to somebody else. So she starts asking everybody what time they got there and if they got to ride, and she asked somebody who, it was basically a couple, and they said, no, we've been here since 5 o'clock in the morning, and unfortunately a boarding group just got cut, so we're not riding. She gave her 2 multi-experience to that family and said, I feel good. I think Daddy would be proud. And I was like, I have to do something. Like, I've never seen this happen. That little girl is absolutely amazing. I have to do something. And I went to go talk to one of the people that actually work at Rise of the Resistance, and I told them the story of what was going on. They went to grab their cords, they went to grab their leaders, and next thing I know, they actually called them over and pulled the family aside and said, hey, we just heard about the amazing thing that you did. Like, that is such a resistant move to think of others. Like, that is amazing that they actually gave her this really cool blanket sort of thing that they have at the shop next to it that says Resistance, and they made a big ceremony about it, and it was absolutely amazing to watch. And next thing I know, they said, don't worry, we're gonna get you guys on there, and you're going on there too for that. Don't worry about that. They said that they were gonna take them sort of down a little bit later, like they were just gonna wait for everybody to go through, and then they're gonna ride the ride. And this lady that was in the group with them with the matching shirt starts crying, and she said, thank you so much. Do you know her story? And I was like, what do you mean? I just heard her say like that she wanted to give the ticket away and that her dad would be proud, but that's about it. And she goes, no, we're with the, I'm gonna butcher the last name, but it was the Gary Sinus Foundation, something like that, which a lot of people may not know what that is, and that's actually the guy that played in Forrest Gump. He was the officer that loses his legs, and he actually has this foundation that is for families that have lost people in the army, or in the service I should say. And this little girl just lost her dad, and she was one of the families that was selected to come to Disney World. And she was telling me that the reason why she really wanted to come to Batu was because her dad was a huge Star Wars fan, and she was so excited to ride this ride because she felt like that would bring her close to her dad. But when she heard you talking about how people sometimes weren't able to, she thought about the fairness of her dad and how he would always think of others first, and how she just wanted to make him proud. And I'm trying not to cry while saying this because I bawled my eyes out afterwards. And I was like, I didn't know, I just heard her say this, and that was absolutely amazing. And I went to go hug the little girl, and they asked if they could take a picture with me as well, and we took a picture, and she just said thank you so much. She didn't expect any of it, and she felt like her dad was really proud of her, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he is, honey. And they went off their merry way to ride Rise of the Resistance. But I can tell you for sure that little girl impacted me, impacted everyone afterwards that I told the story to, because they were like, what happened there? Because everyone's kind of confused or what was going on. And I kind of explained what was going on, and then they're like, do you need a moment? I'm like, I don't know. Give me 1 second to know if I can compose myself, because I was very close to bawling my eyes out, because this little girl who literally just lost somebody wanted to help other people, even in the smallest way possible. Like, I just thought that was absolutely amazing. And the fact that she still got to ride the ride and then be an honorary resistance member, I think that was amazing. And it just, I believe literally me thinking about the story now still makes me super happy and so excited to be able to work for a company that can make magical moments and make memories, and just, it's amazing. So yeah, those are some of my magical moments that I actually got to make, which I am super excited for, and which is the reason why I can't wait for Disney to open. But I do understand why we have to do this. I mean, safety does begin with me. It is drilled in our heads, and so I'm just so thankful that I get to work for a company that gets to basically create these magical moments and memories that will last for a lifetime. Even if it is something so small, it could literally make their whole vacation or day. Like, that's amazing to me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.